The Tarps are still on. A sellout has occurred, and yet we're still struggling with attendance figures. Does UCLA need a new home after all? Are we done with the Rose Bowl?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making the show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast. You're free every day. We talked reaction earlier between UCLA and Oregon State. I think we need to relax. When it comes to Dante Moore being sat or needing to start, I talked about that recently, too. In this episode, I think we don't need to relax about the lack of attendance figures. Let's talk about it again. This episode is brought to you by Jace Medical, where you can empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, which provides you a personal supply of 5 antibiotics, can treat over 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's J-A-S-E medical.com. UCLA football, my goodness. Why do the Bruins struggle so much to draw fans to the Rose Bowl? In my mind, arguably most iconic, beautiful college football venue. Now, there's atmosphere, there's game day things, there's food, whatever. I think we are treated, as UCLA football fans, to be able to go watch college football and see some epic games or some good opponents come in, especially in Pac-12 play in recent years, come in and go to the Rose Bowl, which will only get more lively and entertaining for whatever it means when we head to the Big Ten. That's what's going to happen. It just continues to frustrate me when I see the word sellout and not every seat is filled. That just boggles my mind unbelievably. When the Colorado game is quote-unquote sold out, they're removing tarps, but not them all. And I've been frustrated. There's tarps. They have reasons for tarps. It just makes me mad. It just frustrates me that how can we still, as this big name institution, quote-unquote program, have tarps on in the Rose Bowl? It just looks worse than if there weren't, in my mind. I don't know. Of course, seeing UCLA is cool and everybody bunched out in the lower bowls is fun in the atmosphere when you're at the game, but it just looks a little ridiculous time and time again, which brings home an age-old debate. I'm not going to spend the whole episode on this. I have an older episode that I did back in 22 about where UCLA should go. We're going to bring those options back. 1, stay in the Rose Bowl. Stay in the Rose Bowl, which is even more prevalent with UCLA heading to the Big Ten. There'll be a lot of Big Ten teams who've never sniffed the Rose Bowl in their lives or maybe a long time, and they can come to the Rose Bowl, and UCLA can have the rowdy atmosphere and the worries being overrun by road fans. Is that actually going to happen? Maybe a little bit, but I think then the onus is on us as UCLA fans to make sure that doesn't happen consistently. I think that's where it comes from. And I think fans' attendance and energy and atmosphere will become even more epic, I think, in years to come in 2024 and beyond, whatever the Big Ten schedule looks like when Michigan and Ohio State and all those teams finally start coming to the Rose Bowl. It will be extremely entertaining. So I think Rose Bowl, best tailgating experience, arguably. I mean, there's different places you can go, but on the grass, for the most part, I know shade and heat can be a bit of a problem, but I just think it's beautiful, especially when you compare it to the Coliseum, when you compare it to SoFi, which we'll talk about next. It is the best place to tailgate for a football game in Los Angeles, arguably Southern California. I haven't been to San Diego State. I've been to Fresno and all these things. I just think the Rose Bowl tailgating experience is fun. It's what you make of it, but it provides a great venue and a layout for awesome tailgating. Getting out, that's a problem. We don't care about that. We just care about the fun. Rose Bowl, beautiful, iconic. It was a home field advantage for little bits and pieces. We'll see what it looks like. That's the Rose Bowl. Then you got SoFi. Again, that's a little closer to UCLA's campus. Could be closer for the students, which is a big thing. Maybe the renting price might be a little less maybe than a Rose Bowl, whatever agreement they have with the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. whatever they can work out. SoFi, you bring students, it's closer, it's LA as opposed to Pasadena. And while you take away the tailgating experience, it's closer, it's different, it's going to sound loud, it's a great state-of-the-art venue, it's indoors, so you're not going to complain about sheer 95-degree heat on Saturdays. It's not exactly the comfiest of stadiums. I've never been in the couple of times I've been during day football games. It wasn't super comfy, but it's much better than sitting in 100 billion degrees in the Rose Bowl in the middle of the day, caked in the metallic stands, the bleachers, and you're going to have to suffer through a UCLA game when they're facing a top-tier team at a 12:30 day game in the San Gabriel Valley. So that's where SoFi is closer of sorts, can provide a little easier for students, state-of-the-art venue, and a lot more suites. Not sure if that's appealing to UCLA, but, with the Big Ten, who knows what's going to happen. And then, hey, it's indoors of sorts, and it might lessen the impact of a brutally hot Saturday afternoon compared to the Rose Bowl going to SoFi. That's something. SoFi, unique, closer, numbers, a little less. It's a little different. I know SoFi can expand its numbers for bigger events. It can look a little better with UCLA blue and gold going around, considering the two teams that play there are already blue and gold. So that's not much they have to switch around. That's something. Then there's the on-campus stadium. There's the remodeling of Drake. There's Build It On-Campus Stadium, where there's not too much room to actually put one. You want to lessen the amount of seats in the stands, which would be similar to the rest of the Pac-12, where 50,000, 30,000, 40,000, right? Like Oregon State's not packing 90,000 in the Rose Bowl. Even if they made it to the Rose Bowl, they probably would. That's a lie, but that, right? Or Washington State's not. Oregon's not. UCLA could probably do something even crazier if you gave it on-campus stadium with a good tailgating experience, Westwood of all places, which is a little bit tougher to get to as well, but it's on campus. And then you give the students an easy access, write down everything, and you have the on-campus stadium. It's the feasibility of it that takes away, I think, the actual ability to do so. That takes away from everything. Where I don't think that would work, where to put it is a big question mark. The number, the size, it would take away from, season tickets, but you could increase student attendance and presence at games and give more of a home field advantage. That's a good option. SoFi is a beautiful stadium. I am always going to be biased to the Rose Bowl because I am a youngster who has grown up going to UCLA games. The Rose Bowl is beautiful. I've seen it when it was packed. I've seen it when there were more fans, average attendance. And if there's the worry that the Big Ten fans or any other fans, the Colorado fans, and maybe in a couple weeks, they're going to overrun the UCLA fans, then whatever our gripe is with Chip Kelly or raised season ticket prices or everything in between, that's a problem. We just got to get over that. And if they overrun the stadium, they overrun the stadium. We just got to show up with more people. And if it comes down to pricing, well, I don't control those things. UCLA just got to win, hopefully bring in fans. And most importantly, I think we just got to get rid of the Tarps. I am done seeing Tarps at the football games. It's ridiculous. Just get rid of them. I know it has the Jordan brand on it. I know it says UCLA, yada, yada, yada. Rip them off, pull them off, and deal with it. I love having the Rose Bowl as an iconic home venue. There are other places where you have to drive 30. There's other places in the country where they've got to drive and bus a long time to their football games. Now, we could go into arguments about different attendance figures, but I do think where are you going to top the Rose Bowl? You can build a state-of-the-art 40,000, 52,000 seat stadium, but it's the Rose Bowl. It's beautiful. That is the privilege, the opportunity, not the right, but just a great opportunity to play as a UCLA football player in the Rose Bowl. That's why all the players love coming to play at UCLA when it comes to opponents, play at the Rose Bowl. Now it's just time for us to pack it as fans. I know we can talk about the record. We can get Chip Kelly nonsense. We could talk about the long student commute. Just get over it and just go pack the Rose Bowl one of these days with no tarp on. Goodness gracious me. I hear all the concerns. They're all viable options. At some point, we just got to show up. We just can't knock it until something happens 20 years in the future, or the stadium's going to look red for 40,000. Whatever red team or whatever team comes in the Rose Bowl, we've got to support UCLA. I think that's the biggest thing, and we just got to take the Tarps out. I'm done with those. Next, it looks like Carson Steele is taking a good clamp on and taking a hold of the running back position. Let's talk about his dominance, which has kind of gone under the radar. Yes, I know he had 140 yards and a 100-yard game, but he's really pulled it away from TJ Harden, who's also having a good season, runs per carry. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. I know there's a lot of unrest across the world. There's a lot of uncertainty in today's world. It's important to be prepared. There's unrest across all the parts of the globe. There's natural disasters. You just never know when certain events or disasters will cut and cause supply chain shortages or the inability to get medications, which is why Jace Medical has believed that they've solved the problem. They have a solution. The Jace case is a personalized emergency medical kit. A medication kit has 5 essential antibiotics that can treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can have customization with the Jace case. You can have add-on medications. They've been continually, Jace has, working to expand their medication offerings with recent offerings and getting new options in the Jace case. So as a family, you can get a gift card for family members or your loved ones so they can get a Jace case of their own. JaceMedical.com and enter the code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. Again, the promo code LOCKEDON, JaceMedical.com. You can also snap into the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, as new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Do you think UCLA is going to cover against Stanford? I believe they're more than 2 touchdown favorites, close to it. Hey, if you're going to place a $5 bet at the Bruins, you can get $200 in bonus bets on a $5 bet, win or lose. The app is super easy to use, wide range of betting options, spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. As we cruise on in this Locked On UCLA episode, I want to give more shout-outs to, hey, a lot of has been made of the passing game and the lack of success, pass blocking. When it comes to Dante Moore, should be benched, whatever. It's been UCLA. Why didn't they win the Oregon State game? One, they didn't go to the run more often. Yes, we'll point to the Dante Moore mistakes. I've certainly pointed to those. But again, it was the lack of involvement from the running game early, considering we've seen out of nowhere just an initial starter. I know Carson Steele would get those first carries and everything in between. Let's take a look at the Carson Steele, TJ Harden splits when it comes to carries, yards, and everything in between. They both have been excellent backs, yards per carry, everything in between. But what does it look like now for what was a split back system, dual tailbacks, to where Carson Steele somewhat pulled away in these last 2 weeks? In week 1, you had Carson Steele 13 carries, 76 yards, and a receiving touchdown. TJ Harden, 76 yards, 11 carries, doing a little bit more, the same yardage output, with less opportunities than Carson Steele. Week 2 against San Diego State, 12 carries for Carson Steele, 84 yards and a touchdown. You had Harden, who had 9 carries, 91 yards and a touchdown, but a big 59-yard scamper and run that led to a big score against the Aztecs. Then against NC Central, you had both Steele and Harden, limited opportunities, 5 carries a pop, 83 yards, 66 yards. The Bruins ran for 400 yards over the Eagles. It was simple and easy. Then against Utah, each back had 11 carries for a combination of 60 combined rushing yards between the two of them. The Bruins had no success running the football against Utah. Then, coming out of the bye week, a little different, Carson Steele 30 carries to TJ Harden's 11. 22 yards for TJ, 141 yards booming total for Carson Steele. Then against Oregon State, 22 carries, 110 yards, a touchdown on the ground. Where against Oregon State, 9 carries, 47 yards, a good touchdown run for TJ Harden. But out of nowhere, it's Carson Steele who's come in and just taken a hold of this running back position, where it went from 13, 11, 12, 9, 5, 5, 11, 11, then 30, 11, and the splits have gotten even wider. And it seemed like initially, all right, Steele's cool, and you're building who is the real running back. Harden has a bit better. when it comes to yards per carry and would be higher up the NCAA list if he had more cracks at it, had more yardage. And now you have Carson Steele, who has put in a lot of work, looked really good. And when UCLA was clearly just running the football again and again and again against Oregon State, it looked really good there. Churning for extra yards against Washington State with the inability to go to the ground. The opposition just could not bring Steele down to the ground. And slightly, in my mind, a bit better of a pass-catching option out of the backfield than TJ Harden. 9 catches, 64 yards, and a touchdown, although Steele did not have a catch against Oregon State. All that work, a lot of it, 4 receptions coming against Coastal Carolina, whereas TJ Harden has been getting more opportunities catching out of the backfield. He has 6 catches, but he's got 4 in the last 2 weeks against Washington State and Oregon State for a combination of 15 yards. So they're not getting a lot of yardage coming from Harden. So Chip Kelly has turned into, and Deshaun Foster have somehow turned this split into Steele's going to run the ball a lot more. Harden is that guy that's a change of pace, getting more options and more carries than a true change of pace, but it's just as strong, equally as fast, and will come in to change things up and turn it into a touchdown. And while you would think Carson Steele is more the pass-catching option, recency would show that they've given more opportunity to Harden than Steele catching the ball. You know, against Washington State, Harden with 3, Steele with 1 catch in the last 2 weeks, 2 in the last 3 weeks combined, whereas you have Harden doubling that. They're clearly not going directly to the back over and over again. I'm not sure that's the Dante Moore missing a check down. If they're having, as we've seen, to protect more, use the running back more often to block than leak out faced with a different offensive line. So that's something that UCLA has not been able to employ successfully continually this year, right? They could hit Charbonnet out of the backfield in years previous because the offensive line could hold up. You had DTR who could maneuver. That's just not been the case with Moore. Consistently under pressure, maybe missing those checkdowns, and the running backs have had to stay back to block more than on one occasion, both of them, when you're facing the blitz and everything in between. But that doesn't take away from Harden's ability to get more yards, even with contact, and Steele's ability to pull away, taking a bulk of the snaps and leading that to a more consistent, solidified position of getting more snaps. Something that probably hasn't flown under the radar for most of us, but it's something to acknowledge. Hey, this kid is working hard. Both these running backs. And yes, Keegan Jones, the receiver running back, flip, different position, can flip, spin on a dime. He's excellent. I would ask for maybe more carries from Keegan Jones. He should touch the ball more. Keegan Jones should. He needs to touch the ball more. I know I'm giving love to Steele and some Harden, but UCLA needs to see Keegan Jones touch the football more. With what he can do when he has the football in his hands in open space, the Bruins need to do that, and I think they'd be a lot more successful if they can get Keegan Jones the ball. And Steele has been an excellent addition. Excellent addition. Harden continuing to grow year after year. We'll see how it all plays out. And if Steele is the man, absolutely. Absolutely. The Bruins have to feed those guys. I have said keep Moore as quarterback, but feed those beasts. The Bruins could run the ball a bit better than what we saw against Utah. They've been a bit more successful. Maybe not wildly successful like the last couple of years when he had a true dual threat and an NFL-level tailback in Zach Charbonnet, one of the best running backs in the country last year and the year previous. Still, got to feed those guys. Feed them. Let the men up front work. Create some gaps for Steele to go through. Harden to burst. Make some spin moves. Get some hit sticks, some jukes. Get everything out for Keegan Jones. Spin it all out. Make that combo move. Feed those guys and let them eat in space. All right. Now we've seen who UCLA is, what they need to do. 1, take away the Tarps. 2, feed their backs or former backs or whatever we're going to call Keegan Jones nowadays if he changes his position 7 times. And then you got the likes of, who does UCLA need to stop? There's one man who dominated a second half of a football game, unlike probably many players in any game at any point, individually, with spectacular catches, school records broken in the half, and some overtime periods in Elic Ayomanor. We're going to talk about him coming up next and how the Bruins need to stop him after a somewhat shaky secondary performance against Oregon State next on Locked On UCLA. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has changed everything they need in order to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, because you've got from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, anything you need, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Because with eBay Motors, your number one ride or die is always going to find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, you're not burning cash. No. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car in the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive with ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Wrapping things up for Locked On UCLA, Zach with you guys, talking Tarps and football fans, talking UCLA's running back elevation when it comes to Steele, but still you need to give Harden and Jones a lot more touches. And then, hey, what does UCLA have to do this game? There's going to be a lot more in-depth analysis too, but Elic Ayomanor is someone UCLA will have to key on. Someone who prior to that game against Colorado had 15 receptions, closer to 200 yards receiving, and 1 touchdown, with his longest catch being a 51-yard catch against Sac State, a game in which Stanford lost. They lost to Sac State, the team who Troy Taylor just came from to coach Stanford. All right. And yet they went to Colorado down 29-0, dead out of the water, and came all the way back to win that game in double overtime. Remarkable fashion. Elic Ayomanor, who I just butchered his name before, and I'm going to try and say it right correctly again and again, but Elic Ayomanor. Spectacular catch over Travis Hunter. Spectacular catch, 97-yard catch and score. Big-time play after big-time play that led to a spectacular Stanford comeback. And a week after, UCLA looked a little leaky, a little shaky in the secondary with some miscommunication, Velling, you had Bolden, you had different plays from the Oregon State receivers where big plays were made, a large part with Velling, 3 receptions, 2 touchdowns, a big play catching the ball that floated for an eternity was right there. Well, hey, Ayomanor literally went through a DB, caught it on his helmet, and ripped it through for a touchdown in one of the game's biggest moments. All right, is he a one-hit wonder? Is he a part of the greatest comeback in Stanford football history? And just had a spectacular performance, breaking program records and nearly setting others or tying single-game big play records from a 13-catch, 294-yard performance, 3 touchdowns, all in the second half. All right. Now, the biggest thing UCLA is going to have to adjust is all those lack of communication in the secondary. Whatever went wrong when the Bruins left multiple guys wide open, whether it's the first Velling touchdown, the second one, a third touchdown on a 43 to 32-yard strike from DJ Ayomanor. All guys that were wide open, where the Bruins could have kept the Beavers to a field goal and a 3rd and goal in the first quarter after another touchdown turned into points after Dante Moore interception. I know there's a lot riding on them to stop them. Still, there's many opportunities for Oregon State, more than in previous weeks than the UCLA defense allowed, wide open. Is that because of the balance of the attack? Is that not? Stanford certainly isn't Oregon State. Their quarterback isn't DJ. Even though DJ's not a world beater, he's still better than what Stanford's going to provide. Yet, what's it going to happen? UCLA has to get in the backfield, has to pressure, but communication's got to be there. That's key for the defense not to give up big plays. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen as much as it did in the Oregon State game. Remember, UCLA shut down Washington State's top receivers, except Lincoln Victor was out. I don't think he would make a big difference because the Bruins got in the backfield against Washington State over and over again. Here is a big chance after a receiver has his heyday, Elic Ayomanor, and all of a sudden, what are the Bruins going to do? How are they going to change things? I think it's maybe a one-game wonder. We'll find out. This is where the adjustments can change for UCLA. They haven't happened so far this season where they've needed to make miracle work of a big breakdown in the secondary over and over again. This is where we get to see D'Anton Lynn's staying power and his ability to make adjustments, not just in a rowdy environment on the road, but have a non-rowdy environment also on the road, going to the farm, take down hopefully a weak Stanford team and come away with the win the game that might be closer than we think, but still a game that UCLA should dominate, headed by their defense, leading to success. They just can't let this kid go wild. And if they get in the backfield, if the Bruins do what they've done prior to the Oregon State game, or at times in the Oregon State game, UCLA should have a lot of success defensively. Now, if they let this youngster run wild, the sophomore who didn't even play in 2022, came in and as a first year playing type of D1 football player, dominant, the Bruins have to stop him. There's other options, of course, for Stanford, but it's a big test. If this kid comes out and dominates, one, he's the next breakout superstar if he does it again. Two, UCLA has big problems in the secondary 2 weeks in a row. Is that something that simply wasn't exposed in the first 5 weeks of the season before Oregon State? Or is it just a blip on the record because Oregon State just happened to figure out something and the DBs didn't make plays? This is another test for the secondary, which they passed against Cam Ward and Washington State. Now can they do it again and dominate? Get some interceptions. They dropped an interception against Oregon State. Now they got to go make plays again and get another pick and continue to force turnovers to help lead to a UCLA victory, hopefully by more than 2 scores against a Stanford team the Bruins hopefully should absolutely dominate, which is what we're going to talk about in the next episodes of Locked On UCLA if you're an everydayer. Download, subscribe. Thanks for your support. We'll talk more about it in the next episodes. Throwback Thursday, you know it, everything in between, keys to the game, prediction time that comes with the Friday episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fights. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.